Hey everyone, Anthony Fan Crypto here, the internet's Bitcoiniest music nerd, here with a brand new announcement. Going up on the internet tomorrow, ready for you to buy. It's the one and only Fantano Let's Argue coin. Always hodl, diamond hands, never sell! For a limited time only, spend all your money on this coin and give it to me. You only get rich if I get rich. Through some kind of crazy internet voodoo money magic. Yeah, buy the coin, buy the money, the stock will rise, the money will rise today, yeah. I'm just kidding, don't do any of that stuff. If you do that stuff, you're an idiot. Let's argue, it's time to argue. End of the year, let's talk about some worst albums, maybe argue about a few of them. Austen and I hopped onto the internet and asked you guys what like the worst album of the year was. Let's see what you said, and I don't know, see if I have any arguments against what you're arguing. Vultures 2 somehow makes Vultures 1 look like a masterpiece. Yeah, you know Kanye really put together like a totally invalid piece of shit album when it is so bad it somehow caused his psychotic cult-like fan base to have some kind of like disillusionment. You mean Kanye's made an album so bad and so thrown together and so low effort that even the fans are noticing? We're talking about people who liked Vultures 1, which was also so packed with bullshit and tossed together and lazy that it made Dawn to 2 look almost finished. Just big bit of bitches don't just fall out of the sky, you know. Trash album, garbage album, Vultures 2, even worse. Worst album of the year, there's an argument. Being so serious, it has to be Tortured Poets Department for the line, "You wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me." And the absurd consumerism of the variants, multiple releases, edits, just miserable for the state of pop. I agree. And I actually do think that there would be an argument to be made for Tortured Poets Department as far as worst album of the year during many other years in pop music's recent past. But this has actually been a pretty saturated year for shit albums. I mean, the Katy Perry album measurably is worse than this record. Also, the Tones and I record. Also, the Meghan Trainor album. So, I mean, look, you've seen my reviews of Taylor Swift's recent work. I am no fan. I am by means no fan. But somehow, multiple records like dipped in and were like, nope, sorry, Taylor, you're not having the worst album of the year. However, I guess if you're arguing this purely from the standpoint of like the amount of time wasted for all of us hearing this album, maybe Taylor is the one who ekes it out, because there was absolutely no reason to take a boring album and then pile another boring album on top of it and then release a bunch of boring variations. Maybe while Taylor Swift didn't write the worst music and the worst album of the year, she certainly created one of the biggest, most thankless experiences in popular music in 2024. Peppa Pig Party Deluxe was a bit of a letdown considering the masterpiece that the original was, although I still have a lot of the new songs on repeat every day. Well, then make up your fucking mind. Like, oh, it's disappointment, it's terrible, but I still listen to a bunch of the songs? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Everybody forgot Lil Dicky dropped one of the most painful pieces of music I've had to sit through before. Yeah, Lil Dicky did have a very disappointing drop this year. You know, but the thing is, like, it wasn't so bad I continued to remember it, and I feel like, you know, that's really truly the mark of an awful album. It's so bad, it keeps you awake at night and you have nightmares about it. Popular Monster by Falling in Reverse is so bad I actually started crying because on the second song, I realized I was going to have to sit through the whole shit show that the album was, and I couldn't turn it off because I have to finish what I started, I guess. I will say, as a critic, somebody who often has to finish albums even if I don't like them because I've got to do content, I've got to do a review, it's my job. There are a lot of albums and there's a lot of shit I don't listen to, I decide to pass on as just a casual music fan somebody who just listens to music because they want to listen to music, you don't have to do that shit, man. Don't subject yourself to that. But yeah, the new Falling in Reverse record is pretty shit. I don't really have anything else to add here other than I'm going to do a terrible impression of Ronnie Radke singing and rapping like one of the worst songs on this album. Pardon me if that came off rude. I just have a bad attitude with the world and not just with you. It's the side effects of abuse. I admit I'm a little strange. I don't think that'll ever change. I survived the whole life of pain. You could say I escaped my fate. I'm cynical, egotistical, unpredictable, hardened criminal, and I could be a little hypocritical, but I'll admit it straight to your face. Grow up. I will have to pick a song because we need to discuss how terrible The Heart Part 6 by Drake really was. I was stunned you put it in the E row in tearing diss tracks because that song was dreadfully embarrassing, and it really was the worst diss song of all time and deserved to be beneath the F row. I'm completely confident in my choice after seeing Drake completely malfunction and turn to filing frivolous lawsuits and acting preposterously defensive on podcasts while moving seemingly further each day from ever releasing another, actual song, etc., etc., etc. I don't disagree. Like, The Heart Part 6 is the biggest stinker of diss tracks out of all of the diss tracks dropped between Kendrick and Drake. I don't feel like it was the worst diss track of the year. I feel like Nicki's was far worse, like in terms of bar to bar arguments, and also just like what you could say is, I guess, the musicality of it. Production was terrible, flow was terrible. The biggest issue about The Heart Part 6 for me was that Drake's heart did not sound in it, and it just sort of like illuminated stupid arguments and weird inconsistencies with like what he was saying, especially again in light of these lawsuits. Like, oh, Kendrick said all this crazy stuff about me, but simultaneously he's like, oh yeah, we fed you the information, bro, we tricked you. Okay, man, make up your fucking mind. When talking about the worst music of the year, I am strictly talking about, or at least like, trying to really dig into whether or not something is an awful, truly awful listening experience. And, my biggest issues with The Heart Part 6 was just a lack of effort. It really just like kind of made Drake look stupid at the end of the day. It kind of makes it the worst by diss track standards. Maybe not just like, general music standards, but definitely diss track standards. Everyone raving about the Magdalena Bay album, so I had a listen, and it turns out to be the most amount of nothing I've heard since Death Magnetic. What an absolute unmemorable snooze. Wow, bold take there. I mean, I will say in the current field of pop releases, it's maybe not the most wild or eccentric or experimental record out there, but the production is mega lush, the songwriting is quality, the melodies are there. There's also like cool thematic concepts across the record, dealing in the self and the digital age. I don't know, it's a very catchy, thoughtful pop album. I mean, I was a little underwhelmed by some of the singles, and it sort of took me a minute for the entire album to really kind of grow on me when I heard it in full. I kind of understand maybe a first impression being like, it's okay. But I don't know, it's a great album. It's a really good album. Lifestyle by Yeet. I've been a Yeet fan since 2021. My favorite album from him was 2093 because it showed him admitting his weakness with his addiction and ego. Lifestyle feels like it was rushed to be made. When I heard Lifestyle, I was extremely disappointed that the Opium fans finally got their way and made Yeet sound like Opium. Honestly, bring back the 2093 Yeet. Yeah, it sort of feels like Yeet's trying to have his cake and eat it too, in terms of like progressing in certain ways on 2093, but simultaneously making a regressive hunk of crap on Lifestyle that will satisfy the fans who are like, oh, we don't want this Yeet. We just want Yeet to be high out of his mind and just making like dumb rage tracks. Is there room for artists to do that sort of thing in the current social media age where you can kind of like a la carte every single one of your favorite genres and trends and artists, and you don't even really need to consume their entire albums or bodies of work? You just kind of like pick and choose the moments and certain sounds or vibes they cater to whenever they sort of like feel like it. I don't know, it could work, but it is very clear that like Yeet was sort of like gearing the sound of Lifestyle to an audience who wanted a certain thing that they were not getting on 2093. I guess from here we'll just have to see whether or not he continues to push some of the boundaries and ideas that he had on 2093, or just like continues further down a rabbit hole that is more reminiscent of what he did. I don't really know. I mean, I will say, I don't think it's the worst album of the year, but he really didn't put that much effort into it, and it clearly was just very wash, rinse, repeat, and not as ambitious as what he was trying on 2093. Worst song, Houdini by Eminem. His flow is uninspired and his jokes are stale and bad. I haven't been so embarrassed to share a home state with a musician since Ted Nugent. I'm gonna play devil's advocate Eminem fan here and just say, you just don't get it. You just don't get it. If only you would get it, then maybe you'd get it. Symbolically, it has to be 143 by Katy Perry, a failure in every step of the way: marketing, creative input, visuals, and of course the actual music. It's bankrupt and gray without offering anything new, lyric or production-wise. It is ironically the perfect example of when you don't actually do it for love. Damn. That comment goes hard. I will say, I do feel like the Katy Perry album, the negative reception it received, is really a prime example of how hard people will collectively go in on an album when it sort of feels like there is greater permission to do so, and they understand that there's not going to be any sort of like heat or blowback for hating on something. Like when there's this wider awareness that hating on a certain thing is okay, people will go fucking in on it, regardless of how bad that actual thing is. While the Katy Perry album is certainly not good, I do think there are worse pop albums that dropped this year. Like namely the Meghan Trainor record, but the thing with that is no discerning pop or music fan of any stripe is sitting there waiting for the Meghan Trainor album to drop because like their hopes are really high for the Meghan Trainor album, or even the Tones and I album, another record that by many measures I think is a lot worse than the Katy Perry record. So because those albums are shit, the prior albums were shit, and people anticipated they would be crap, there's no love lost, there's no real disappointment. But with Katy Perry, there's like stakes involved. She actually used to put out some fire fucking pop, but now she's like fallen off so hard she can't stir together a great track. So, I mean, I sort of understand why it's a phenomenon. I understand why it happens, but I just do want to say, I do feel like the hate is a little outsized with Katy Perry when there are much worse pop records out there.
This MIDI only available at Supreme.
And I think that's going to be it for this Argue episode. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. Argue. Mwah. Forever.